And President Muhammadu Buhari's refusal to sign the Electoral Amendment Bill continues to generate reactions across the country. For about 3 months now, the president's reluctance to give assent to the bill has created a dilemma within the political space as to what shape the 2023 general election would take. This is even after the bill was reworked by the National Assembly to expunge controversial segments. One of the major reasons many want this bill is to introduce electronic transmission of election results to aid transparency of the electoral process. The INEC chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, says once the bill is passed into law, the timetable and schedule of 2023 election activities will be released. Well, joining me in the studio to talk about this for now is lawyer and public affairs analyst Barrister Bosun Osifowora. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
My pleasure.
Well, some would say the president is being reluctant to sign this electoral bill, despite the amendments being made already. And if you look at what the Attorney General of the Federation, the statement he made recently, he said the president would not sign because of certain issues that we see state governors and some other stakeholders reacting to. And the question is, what holds for 2023 elections if we are still seeing this back and forth, just like we have seen in previous years since 2018? We saw what happened before the elections in 2019. Is this a repeat of what played out at the time?
Well, it's a cocktail of issues.
All right.
And let's take it one by one. I feel, for me, laws, legislations, and the making of same should be altruistic and people-oriented.
Right.
But from what we've seen with this back and forth between the presidency and the legislators, it's very obvious that there are certain interests that are being protected, there are certain interests that are being guarded, and that's why you have this back and forth. Because one of the things you're saying is that the major thing here is that every time the bill goes back to the assembly, for them to correct certain aspect of it, the next thing is they add something else to it, which was not a part of the entire bargain. Then they send it back again, like, what exactly is happening? I feel, I think some time back we talked about this.
Yes.
Electronic transmission
of results, yes,
which is the main part of this bill. I think some people don't want it to fly. That's why they are frustrating this, because I mean everything had gone on smoothly. Look at the issue of consensus candidate. It was there. I mean, they gave the options. You either do direct primaries or you do indirect primaries. Then they added the issue of consensus candidate. Fine. Everybody left it like that. Then they came back again and said, for consensus candidate, all the aspirants must sign.
Sign an agreement.
I mean, even normal elections, there are instances where certain agents or certain aspirants will tell you, we don't agree with this thing, and they walk away. But why would you compel everybody to sign? Now, there's another clause to it that says that where they don't sign, then you revert to
either direct
or indirect primaries. Have you thought about the cost? Because people are actually running away from, you know, some of this.
Perhaps they're also looking at, me playing the devil's advocate now, perhaps they are looking at litigations, because we know how it is in this country, and we know the process of justice in the country.
Litigation is part of election. You can't rule it out. But
we know how it has hampered when it comes to development in certain states. Part of the state, we have staggered elections and all of it. Perhaps that is what the National Assembly is looking at.
I don't think so. Because if you look at it, I mean, in the earlier part of this Fourth Republic,
yes.
All right, let's call it so. Now you look, I mean, there's been issues where elections became staggered and all that, but along the line, the electoral bill was amended to accommodate, you know, and infuse a time limit for which election petitions can actually run all the way to the highest court. And that gave some stabilization to it. So, and that is settled, and that has stabilized the polity. So there's nothing in this regard that they're thinking for maybe timeline. It's got nothing to do with timeline. This is downright selfish. And you know that this is not going to work. Now, but you see, another thing they're not looking at is the cost implication. So if we've gone consensus, then also are you looking at time? Because with what they said here now, we have to revert to indirect or direct. Then you now regroup. There's a time frame for this thing. So what were they thinking? That's even one. Then there's another part they introduced also. You saw this last part where they said that no political appointee of any. I mean, that is ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. Now, they'll tell you that they're guarding against governors using their appointees as delegates. But have you forgotten the constitutionally guaranteed right that says that somebody can vote and be voted for? So a government appointee will be cut off. What happens to is universal.
They're also trying to ensure that state resources are not spent on these elections. That is one of the reasons they gave. That state resources to finance the election is what they are also trying to check. Isn't that a reasonable reason to give?
We have seen where elections have gone against the wish of the incumbent. So what happened to state resources in that regard? Now, so you see, this thing, I feel that my grasp with this is that, you know, just do this thing, send it to the president, let him assent, and let's go. Then you keep tweaking, you keep adding things. That doesn't show seriousness. As far as I'm concerned, on the part of the legislators, it doesn't show seriousness. Then it shows that there's some motive, because at the end of the day, INEC has said that if this thing doesn't, I mean, this bill will affect the electoral calendar.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, what we will have is a reversion. We will revert to what we used to have.
But are we looking at it in this light that perhaps they are trying to force some coordination within parties? That is what they are trying to ensure.
You're really playing the devil's advocate.
That they are trying to ensure that, you know, parties and their members, you know, are coordinated, have a common goal to achieve, instead of just having, okay, selfish interest or having one interest or the other that may not be healthy for the party. Let's all work together. Can't we look at it in that light?
That is a brilliant argument, and that's fantastic.
Right.
But if you look at the overall good, because, for example, it says that a party that doesn't conform or comply with dispositions will have his candidate taken. His candidate will not be put on the electoral sheet, the voting sheet. Now, if you're trying to avoid litigation, you have only started. You have opened a floodgate of litigation with this dimension. Because at the end of the day, if a party says we have consensus candidate, now they've agreed and they come up with it, there will always be dissenting voices. In any democracy, you can't have 100% vote in respect of a particular thing. Now, so tying their hands behind is what I've seen with this. Because all aspirants, there are instances where aspirants will, it looks noble. But it is not taken care. It looks noble that, okay, fine, if we actually say it's consensus, let all of us come, let all of us sign. Agreement is agreement, but compelling every aspirant. What if an aspirant works away and it says he's not pleased with the process, and maybe 9 out of 10, and maybe 8 out of 10 or 9 have supported a consensus candidate. That dissenting one will now make the party revert to indirect or direct.
So they should look at how to win this person, lobby that person. That is something, relationship within a party.
If you lobby him beyond the time that is stipulated for you to present your candidate, what happens? And then some people will take advantage of that. They'll push and push and push and push until the thing goes, you know, out of reach. Now, so a law cannot be 100% correct or certain, but you must leave some margin of error. Now, so why this is why I believe that this clause, infusing that clause that says that every candidate must sign, it doesn't work well.
Right. Now, let's look at this other clause where it talked about spending. You know, capping it, that it shouldn't be more than 5 billion naira. And there are those who are also questioning that how have we really effectively monitored spending with regards to elections, campaign, and all of it? Can we really achieve that? Is it even necessary?
And that looks like a copy and paste thing to me. It's what obtains in St. Acclaims. But they have what it takes to measure things like that. How do you know what has been spent. It looks good on paper, but how practical is it? Do we even have the measures? You know, you just don't wish for something that is happening somewhere because it looks noble, it looks nice. Capping electoral spending is good, but how workable is it in this climate? How do you measure it? How do you know where a candidate or a party has overspent? Then what do you do in that regard? Those things are a little bit out of our reach. It's fantastic on paper, but it's not realizable here.
But then again, still on this matter of spending, raising it to 5 billion naira is also a thing that a lot of persons are questioning. That why are we looking to raise such the spending to that amount? Because people will be looking at recouping, and then this will ensure monetization of the whole process.
That's for those who have the money,
right?
For those who don't have the money, if I'm
this is a challenge.
It's not really a challenge. It has just put a cap on it. Don't spend more than 5 billion. If I don't have up to 5 billion, if I can mobilize my people with my little resources, it doesn't mean I have to go and look for 5 billion. It just means that a candidate shouldn't
spend above that,
and so that you don't muzzle out. But you see, like I said, you cannot measure it here. How do you know how much has been spent? Who are the people that, this is Nigeria, for God's sake. If somebody knows you've spent above 5 billion and is being asked to come and check you, it's just a matter of, Oga, where is my own? You know, and he will go back and say they didn't spend more than that. What are the parameters?
The system in place.
The system is not viable for this kind of thing. It's a plausible, it's something that should be applauded, but it is not practical here. When I say it's not practical, it doesn't mean it can't be realized, but what we have does not support this kind of law. So it's just a law on paper, and then how do you prove it? Then how do you use it against the candidate that has really gone above the amount that you have stipulated? Then you see, another thing you also have to look at is elections are expensive. Going with the retinue of aid and supporters, look at presidential election, you definitely have to go through all the states. Now, so how do you do that? Is 5 billion really enough to do that? There are a lot
Should
of
we
logistics.
even be spending up to that amount?
If you look at radio jingle, you're a TV station, you know how much you charge. Now, so if I'm going to run an election 3 months to that time, the jingles are on one. I look at how many radio stations, look at how many TV stations, look at all those things come with this. So how do we now stay within 5 billion? Now, the idea is that somebody who expended 5 billion on an election may be looking at how to get back his money. Right. But you see, election is not just your own money. A lot of people come to support you. Now, so
people will be wanting to recoup for what they invested in. It's an investment. That's what you're trying to say.
There are other checks and balances that will get. People will definitely, people lobby. See, we shouldn't shy away from the fact that if somebody supported you whilst you're trying to get into an office, there's always a give back process. There's always
we
a
should
give
come
back.
to accept that.
It's the norm everywhere in the world. There are people who will give you appointees. There are people who will lobby you for this, because I mean, look at in the US. You know, the gun control thing is definitely influenced by certain people.
Absolutely.
And you see the stiff opposition to gun control. There are certain people that are interested, and if you look at it, there are legislators who are being sponsored by this interest to where they make laws. Now, so at the end of the day, you have the same kind here. There are people who have supported you who will definitely come. But you see, there are checks and balances that can be put in place for that. Now, appointing somebody who supported you during election is not an aberration.
Really?
It's not an aberration. I'm serious. It's looking at the due process of appointing that person into that office.
Right.
If I've brought someone into an office, because this person, I'm definitely going to use my supporters in my administration. I'm not going to look for somebody
You're not going
to
look at capacity, if they can deliver.
No, that's where I'm going. Now, what you will look at, what we will guard against is the capacity and also the criteria that is required, or criteria that are required for getting the person into an office. If you pick somebody because he supported you,
who is not competent for an office, then you've gone against the law. You've gone against the system. But if you pick somebody who is equally competent, who supported you during election, it is not out of place. It is not out of place. It is not an aberration. It is not against the law. I'm not going to look for opposition and put in my cabinet.
It has to be someone you can work with.
Somebody I can work with, but who's got the competence.
The capacity, yeah.
And who meets the criteria for the job. That's it.
Now, let's look at those who are seemingly on the other side of all of this argument in terms of the governors and other stakeholders who are agitated as we speak with all of, you know, the clauses that the legislature is, you know, sleeping into these laws. I mean, we see that they are seemingly trying to force the hand of the legislature from ensuring, or the president from passing this into law. And Nigerians are wondering, this should be about us, not just about the power play. Talk to us from that point or from that window, what you make of the seemingly power play.
It's unfortunate that the gulf between the rulers and the ruled in this part of the world is very wide. Most laws are not really done for the sake of the people. Most of these things, we said at the beginning that I feel, I had a debate with some of my friends yesterday, and we looked at it that, say, this back and forth is an attempt to squatter this thing. Make sure that the president is not happy with this bill, then eventually this bill doesn't pass. Then we revert to what we have. Because how can we agree on something? Then they said, okay, just amend.
And then you inject it.
Then you inject something diametrically opposite what was there before. That's got nothing to do with the people. That's got nothing to do with protecting democracy. That's purely selfish. And they're fighting for certain interests. You saw where the Attorney General said it, that this thing is supposed to be altruistic. And the president will not be cowed. The president will not be forced into, you know, assenting to something that is not people-oriented, that does not support democracy, that is outrightly selfish. And I support the Attorney General on that. That's what's going to happen. So as long as we don't get this done well, then this back and forth will go on. And at the end of the day, we wouldn't have the new electoral bill. That might come up maybe after 2023.
Now, so what lessons should Nigerians begin to learn from all of this? Because this has been going on for quite a while. This is like the 6th or the 5th time that we have been going back and forth.
And it looks like there will be more.
Right.
Now, you see, the lesson is this. We should start electing people that will actually fight for our interests and our rights. This is the only country where I've seen that a legislator votes in a particular pattern that has nothing to do with what his constituents have said. Constituents don't matter in this democracy. I don't understand how this works. You things will happen. You will go to the legislature in your House of Assembly or even House of Rep in your area. They don't even. There are no processes of putting in things that this is what we want. This is what your entire constituency wants.
So when they said they were going to consult with their constituents,
have you seen any consultation? Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. No, there's no town hall meeting. There's nothing. All these legislators do is they come to your area, sink borehole, put their names, put their pictures. Is that democracy? That is not even the job of a legislator. They will say they've tarred this road just to show you that, okay, we're doing something for you. You know, that's it. We're helping you. Well, that's not the job of a legislator. Sinking borehole, doing pipe-borne waters. That's not what a legislator is there to do. A legislator is supposed to make laws that reflects the wishes and drive of his people. We don't have that here. People don't even have access to some of these legislators. As simple as local government is, it's unfortunate that most times too, the people who have access to them only go there to beg for things, you know, ephemeral things. And sometimes those ones are overwhelmed with the financial burden.
Yes.
So, and the demands. Now, but when it comes to laws and reflecting the wishes of the people, I don't think what we have at the state assembly, at the national assembly, even at the local government level, is reflective of what the people want. The people are suffering, the people are complaining every day. These people are doing things that are practically diametrically opposite what they want. And at the end of the day, they know that, okay,
let me get this money, call, when it's close to election, they call them, share some things, and then people
how
don't
can
say
the president
anything.
resolve this now? Because this is like his name on the sands of time. That was what a lot of people were looking forward to.
The president has said that even if he hasn't done anything, he wants to leave an electoral process that is enviable, that people will look at and remember him for. For the first time, I think I'm supporting the president on this. But you see, the legislators cannot be playing hide and seek with the law. You're talking about the life of 200 million, over 200 million people. You can't be changing things as if you're tossing dice. You know, it doesn't work like that. Now, so I think the president too needs to get his own lobbyists and work on the people that are there. We can't rule out the fact that everybody has got somebody who could actually influence this. He needs to be firm and tell them, this is what I want, and push his own people to actually influence this. Because if he leaves it like this, I assure you, nothing is going to come out of this. Then the electronic transmission that we all celebrated will just fizzle out in our own face.
Right. That's a fine place to leave the conversation, hoping that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you so much, lawyer and public affairs analyst, right, for your time on the program. Barrister Bosun Osifowora, thank you so much.